In 1955, there was a group of committed Seventh-day Adventists that were meeting in Kansas City, and they had a vision to have a church in Johnson County, out in the country, right? Out where the suburbs were growing. In 1956, they bought 10 acres around 87th and Glenwood for $24,000. In 1957, they opened a 10-grade school. There was a TV station building that was purchased, classrooms added on to that. And then a few years later, in 1962, Shawnee Mission Hospital was built through the leadership of a number of our members. Listed, it's really difficult to see, but there were about 80 charter members. I'm just curious, how many here today were here at New Haven, not here, but at Glenwood, in the 50s and 60s, those formative years? Could you stand up, please? Thank you. I'll tell you what, the vision, the zeal, the sacrificial giving that was exemplified by those founding members, it lives on today. So we have a lot to be thankful for those that came before us. Many of them are gone, waiting for that precious day of Jesus' return. But we thank you for all they've done. All right. So moving on to 1965, the church was built on the Glenwood property. And 7 years later, in 1972, that was paid off. They were debt-free in 7 or 8 years. And I don't know why I'm saying they. I actually was born in this church, and it's we, right? I just wasn't paying the bills at that time. So, by the mid-1990s, Midland had moved over to Shawnee area. Even still, we were out of classroom space. Literally, the adult Sabbath school classes were talking over each other in the sanctuary. We were out of room, and we needed to do something about it. How many of you attended the old sanctuary? Raise the hands. Quite a few. So I'd like to see the inverse. How many did not? So probably half, right? Half of us don't know that part of the history. And it's important, right, for us to see that. So, mid-90s, we had a need. Pastor Lefebvre was our pastor at that time. We had a 5-year plan that we developed, and part of that plan called for getting a youth pastor, which we didn't have at that time. We only had one pastor. Starting a Spanish church, which we did. We did get the youth pastor as well, which is blossomed to where we are today with the number of pastors and talent we have. Pretty amazing. We also said we need to do something about our building and facility needs. So we started building plans and a stewardship campaign. And we raised about $1.6 million over that next 5-year time period. So the vision began to what's next, the next open door. So we looked at, before we leave that slide, we looked at a couple things. Before we invested $3 million to build a sanctuary at Glenwood, we really had the question, could we be at a more visible location? We looked for about a year under Carol Blackwell's leadership, and we just didn't find anything. There were no open doors. So we ultimately felt, okay, we're supposed to stay here at Glenwood We felt like there were some compromises by doing that, but it was the thing to do. So literally, we were about 2 weeks away from a building permit at Glenwood, and then the last minute, March 2002, this Antioch Elementary School property was put up for sale, and there was about a 2-week time period for bids to be put together, offers made, and that's a difficult thing for a church, to everybody to agree, have the money ready, but we did because we had the funds, we already knew what we needed, we were unified as a church, and because of that all coming together at that point in time, we were ready within a week to tour this facility. How many remember touring this facility that first time? It was remarkable, and this was a godsend event, clearly. And look at we had 56,000 feet on 10 acres. That was $1.5 million. About 6 years earlier, the school district had put more than $2 million in improvements in this property alone. And we had a much more visible location and everything and more that we could have envisioned. Praise God.